What does proactively protecting yourself against California regulations and laws look like as a business in the state of California? We're sitting down with FFL Guard. Let's talk about it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel today. Another great opportunity to get some information in front of you and be able to sit down with somebody I wouldn't normally get to sit down with. Today we have an opportunity with Chris Chiafullo from FFL Guard. He is the creator and the National Coordinating Council for FFL Guard. Chris, thank you very much for being with us today.
It's great to be here, man. It's a nice couch, comfy couch. We get to hang out, shoot the breeze. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, before we get into that today, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to these videos. It really helps with the algorithms to get them out there as far as they can possibly go. As always, we are trying to educate on Second Amendment, litigative, legislative, and cultural aspects of the Second Amendment here in California. So, Chris, could you enlighten us a little bit here? What is FFL Guard, and how exactly does a service like this end up originating in the Second Amendment space?
So FFL Guard is a flat-fee legal services program that's led by lawyers, me being National Coordinating Council, and subject matter experts across the country. At any given time, we've probably had 5,000 FFLs from retailer to distributor to manufacturer through our doors. Our roster is usually around 800 per year, and it's a proactive service with a reactive feature, meaning we look at ourselves like doctors. And it's easier for us to give cholesterol medication than it is to do open heart surgery. We can do the surgery, and we're good at it, but it's painful, and it costs a lot of money. So what we say is, look, pay us a flat fee. It's a couple $100 a month. It's like a cell phone bill. And we will keep you apprised of everything, keep you out of harm's way, give you instant access to us when you need it most, aid you during an inspection, and if, God forbid, it goes beyond the inspection, and in your case, that would be with DOJ as well. So it's not just ATF. But if it elevates past that point, then you don't pay us anymore. You pay us that membership fee, and we service you as your lawyers. So I just went on a tear for you, but it's difficult to get people to think outside the box on not waiting to call me to lawyer up. You know, you should be lawyering up before you need to lawyer up in this space. We started FFL Guard in 2008. I've been a lawyer since 99, and I've only ever done this law. And California is really our biggest market. So that's what it is and what we do and how we do it. And it's been a successful run so far.
Well, I can certainly imagine that California would be a large market for you. There's tons of regulations, tons of hurdles for FFLs to have to jump through just to kind of remain in business. On that note, though, we see a lot of litigation come out of places like California or Illinois or New York, simply because that's where legislation ends up being the worst. As far as the market for the service is concerned, do you see that kind of popping up in similar places, or is it kind of spread all throughout the United States?
FFL Guard is absolutely spread across the United States. We're in every state, and we deal primarily with the federal issues and ATF. And one of the reasons we've been a success is because we provide the consistency that ATF doesn't provide in their own enforcement policies and techniques. We are the glue that holds it together and says, well, hey, pal, you did it that way in Boston, but this is Houston, and you're trying to do it a different way. So it's certainly spread across the U.S. To your point, however, the states like Massachusetts, Maryland, New York, New Jersey, Illinois, and traditionally California, those would be your hotbed states for activity. Now you get the Washingtons and the Colorados and the Louisianas, and others thrown in there as well, where the state laws are more stringent or supersede federal law. Well, nothing supersedes federal law, but they butt up against federal law, and it becomes very complex in that environment to survive. And I will tell you, even all those states doing all those things that I just listed, nobody compares to you California guys. Well, you're a world unto yourselves out there.
We just get to be a little bit special, be in our own little bubble.
Special.
I certainly do. We certainly do feel that when we're here. Sometimes it's even difficult to peer outside the bubble and realize what the rest of the nation is like, just because we have so much that's kind of drowning us here. I am sort of curious also, you kind of mentioned already, the difference between cholesterol medication and open heart surgery.
Oh, yeah.
It's really easy for somebody to think about retaining an attorney as a reactionary method of, something's already happened. All right, it's time to retain an attorney. Can you share any stories with us and any experiences that you have of why it would be good to get with a program like FFL Guard prior to anything happening, being proactive that way?
Yeah, it's funny because you and I, off camera before we started, we're talking about success stories, right? And I said to you that it's sort of like proving a negative because our success has been keeping people from blowing their legs off on the landmine, giving them the map to get around the minefield,
Right.
keeping people off the operating room table. I will tell you that a huge part of FFL Guard's success in California has come directly at the hands of Chuck Michelle. I've known Chuck a long time, and he was instrumental in bringing what we call the yearly service plan for California to FFL Guard because Californians needed special attention. So the success stories I have aren't necessarily, we went into that hearing or went into the into courtroom and we blasted them out of the water. The success stories are the hundreds upon hundreds of FFLs that have been left alone to sell, to prosper, and to not be burdened by all the regulations, like you say, in your special state, that will really drown someone. I'm a huge fan of Chuck, so.
Well, I mean, you're talking about, I guess, staying away from those big things like, having to go to court, argue for yourself just to remain in business. As far as the service that's provided is concerned, what does that look like from this program on a day-to-day basis?
If you're a retailer, you really want to be part of FFL Guard. Things are fluid. You're constantly keeping track of what happens and how things change. And when you have a question, we have an online portal where you can go on your California yearly service plan client. You can see what other California yearly service plan clients have asked and answered. Usually find your answers before you have to ask. But if you do ask, we run it through Chuck's shop, and he gets you, if it's a state-specific issue, you guys have DROS, you guys have your own DOJ, you have all kinds of fun stuff the rest of us in the outside world don't have, and we get you an answer right away. So you don't make the error that will suck you into that vortex where now you have to go to a hearing, you have to engage in litigation, and that is an expensive endeavor. In any whether it's Joe Biden in office, Donald Trump in office, I don't care who's in office, litigation is an expensive endeavor for everybody. And one of the tactics, of the government is to put you out of business through litigation.
Yeah.
We'll fight you for a year so you have no money left. And we help avoid that scenario.
Well, certainly tactics that we are very well familiar with in California, having as many lawsuits as we do, having to see them continuously be appealed even after we get the good opinions.
Yes.
You think about some of these cases like Duncan or Rhodey or now even Boland, where they continue to carry on just because the state is stubborn. Even when they're running at a deficit, they want to continue and see them go through the court because they know it costs money and it takes time, and they want to continue and impose those laws for as long as they can. But having mentioned the new Trump administration, we did see a big change on the federal level in politics.
It's great, isn't it?
I mean, we didn't necessarily see from the overall look a big change in California, but we did, upon closer inspection of a lot of these races, we even see the tide turning in California a little bit. I'm curious what your perspective is nationally of what the landscape looks like in 2025 and for the next few years.
It's interesting because your knee-jerk reaction would be, I would assume a lot of your audience are Trump supporters. I mean, it's a fair assumption to make. Would think, okay, our guy's in, or like I say, daddy's home, right? So our guy's in, we can take a breath. I think that's a mistake. I think resting on your laurels is a mistake for 2025 in particular, because there has been a whole world for 4 years before this of planting seeds of trees that you don't want growing. You've got embedded forces now, youngins. The old guard at ATF is who you really would want around, but that's going to be the attrition. You know that. So the folks that have been brought in over the last few years are the ones who are pushing buttons, doing inspections, causing the chaos. You can't rest. Don't rest. Now's the time to be hyper vigilant and absolutely stay out of the crosshairs, as they were. It's a real fear of mine, and I think you and I spoke about this, that people will be like, oh, all right, we're good. Trump's here. We don't need to do an inventory anymore. We don't need to do this. Or you just breathe easier on doing the forms, and you end up creating a real mess for yourselves when you didn't have to.
Well, yeah, we definitely are shouting the same thing. Now is the time when you have, whether it be by slim margins or not, you have what seems to be a favorable Congress. You have what seems to be a favorable Supreme Court. Now is definitely the time to make gains. Not to mention, we celebrated so much when SCOTUS struck down the Chevron doctrine. That has to do with federal agencies, and you know what? That's great.
It is.
But those California agencies are not necessarily federal agencies, so there's still some hurdles that we're going to have to continue and jump. I think that FFL Guard does end up providing a good service and good education to businesses in California to really give them that proactive measure. So, if you got anybody who's seeing, something like FFL Guard for the first time, what would be your message to that person?
That we are a cost-effective solution for a problem you don't even know you have yet. I'm sure it bounces around your head that this could happen.
Right.
But, before I'm like an exterminator, before the cockroaches invade, you want to make sure that your perimeter is fortified and you got the right exterminators, in your Rolodex. And waiting until 0 hour is really difficult. So
I guess that would be the final question that I would ask. What does it look like when the proactive measures are not taken, when you're getting
Messy.
a phone call when it's too late? What is
Messy.
that process?
It looks like a mess. It looks like a mess. It looks like trying to soothe the government first. Let me take one step back. I've seen over the course of my 25-year career, folks represent themselves. And there's like an old saying, a lawyer who has... who represents himself as I forget what the saying is, but the lawyer represents himself as a fool for a lawyer, or something like that. It goes the same way for a person trying to take on the government alone. You need a lawyer. So to your end, that was the Trump weave, by the way. I brought it out here. I'll bring it back in. To your point, people try to handle it themselves and make a real mess of it, and the government knows this. They take advantage of that. They take advantage of litigants who come in on a solo flight. Don't let it get that far down the road. Don't let the cancer get to stage 4, right? You need to get it at stage 0 and stage 1 to have any measure of success. When they get in my lap after, people are running in the door with their hair on fire, it's difficult to get out of without costing a lot of money. And that's tough, believe it or not. Lawyers are people too. All right,
Are you sure?
I am sure. I've got kids. They love me. I'm a good dad. I'm a good guy in general. And I don't want to end up the bad guy either, because I give you a bill for whatever it is. Jesus, who's worth this? You've basically come to me, and again, back to medical terms, right? Your engine has seized.
Yeah.
You want me to save your business. It's a costly endeavor. And then you end up disliking me, disliking the government. It's a lot of angst and anxiety that you don't need.
Well, I think that's fair. In a world seemingly with a lot of optimism right now, we got a lot of optimism in the Second Amendment community, just as far as litigation to look forward to. As far as California is concerned, we've got some optimism in the legislative feature as well. Although it's kind of tough to say that, just because it's sort of driven by the tragedy that are these fires that are ravaging California right now due to mismanagement. But
I got to tell you, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but
sure,
I'm a New Yorker. Okay, so we have our own set of democratic problems.
Sure.
But I got to tell you, us guys on the other coast, like seeing this, it's heartbreaking. It is absolutely heart-wrenching to see that.
Yeah.
And it is, I will tell you, it is in our news feed 24/7, your fires. And the incompetence and mismanagement that has gone on behind that.
And it's almost interesting because it is every year. And I think, it's a little bit closer to home. We're located in Orange County, California. Right. These fires are tearing through LA. There's not a person in our office that doesn't know at least a handful of people that is being, at the very least, affected, if not their home completely burning down. I think something that we ought not forget, though, is that these sort of travesties have been happening in Northern California primarily for years, every year. There are wildfires that happen in California every year. It's just normally they're in Northern California. They're not in LA. And every single time, not just this time, it certainly is a tragedy.
And those are not advertised to us.
Yeah. And
like I don't like you telling me this is a download of information. Like I'm not seeing that part of it on my side of the world. In fact, the only time, what's really interesting, and not that we're going off on a tangent, but what the hell? What's really interesting is, when they start replaying the Trump clips of saying, I've been saying you need to do this, I've been saying you need to do that. He goes on Rogan before this happens and dances to that tune, and then yet here it still happens.
Yep.
I mean, it's mind-boggling.
And it is translatable. I mean, we've been talking from our space for a very long time about how Governor Newsom has been irresponsible and mismanaged California in the Second Amendment litigative world.
Yep.
So it's not too much of a stretch to think about mismanaging something else. And while we generally cover the Second Amendment world,
stuff,
you shouldn't be surprised when something like that is mismanaged. And then on top of that, it's not just the wildlife or the land; it's also mismanagement of the money. I'm sure you can see plenty of articles right now going out about the mismanagement of the money. So,
and you're right, that bleeds over into the mismanagement of everything. This is who's in charge. This is who we put in charge.
Right. I guess which is great evidence that you need to be proactive in securing your future, and that is what FFL Guard ends up providing for FFLs and businesses in California. With a lot of optimism in litigation and legislation, we still need to remain on guard. We still need to protect ourselves. I think FFL Guard is definitely a good service that's provided for that. Chris, I want to thank you very much for taking time with us today.
Yeah, man.
And sharing with us a little bit. Thanks for coming on.
Anytime. And if you want to ever BS about anything else other than 2A, we can do that too. Restaurants in New York City, whatever you want, I'm in.
I guess I'll have to go try some restaurants in New York City first. But yeah, absolutely.
Thanks so much, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And guys, if you like videos like this, you want to continue to see content, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the videos. It really helps the algorithms drive this to as many people as possible. After all, we are looking to educate on Second Amendment litigative, legislative, and cultural efforts here in the state of California. Thanks again, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.